Hey tea heads, this is Don and Celine from Mayleaf. Today I'm going to be introducing you to one of our two new tasting experiences. This is the Long Jing tasting experience. We've also got the Anji Bai Cha tasting experience. And these experiences have come from requests from people out there because I'm always talking about the slight subtleties and differences between the different batches of the same tea type. And in order to educate your palate, the best way to really understand the nuances of a tea type and understand the different sort of parameters that are at play which can affect the experience of those teas, it's best to do a side-by-side tasting. So for these experiences, we have purchased in three batches of teas for you to experience together to do a horizontal tasting so that you can understand their differences. And I've set them up in a way to make it a little bit of a game so you're a bit blind when you receive these kits. They're only going to come as T1, T2 and T3, and they're going to come with a letter so that it'll give you some intro about the differences, and it's only when you want to be unblinded that you can reveal which tea is which so that you can understand it. So it just helps you to go in a bit blind, have an open mind. And that's what Celine is doing here. She's going in blind on these three Long Jing teas. So as I said, each tasting experience comes with a letter so you can read it. It'll just go through the different steps and then you can follow along. So today, it's Long Jing Day.
I love Long Jing Day.
And I know you love Long Jing, which is why I wanted you in on this one. So we've got three Long Jing teas. And I'm going to be telling you that one of these is our Imperial Green this year, Imperial Green 2023, which is released at the same time as this experience. If you want to buy that separately, you can. Okay. And then we've got two other teas here. So we're going to scope them, okay? But I'm not going to tell you which one's which.
Okay,
and I'm going to try very hard not to point.
Yeah, don't point.
So our Imperial Green 2023 was picked on the 25th of March 2023 from the TEAWARE Fuding, so small leaf Fuding cultivar, you don't have to remember this all, and from Xinjiang in Zhejiang province, which is approximately 550 meters high.
Okay.
Then we've also got another tea, which we're calling the Wunyuzhao because it is from the Wunyuzhao cultivar.
Okay.
So different cultivar, so TEAWARE Fuding and Wunyuzhao, different cultivars. And this is further south from Suichang in Zhejiang province. All Long Jing has to come from Zhejiang province. It's picked earlier, 7th of March 2023 at 1,000 meters.
Okay.
So,
higher elevation.
So further south, as you go further south, it gets hotter. Therefore, higher elevation becomes more important, right?
So picked earlier as well.
Picked earlier and higher elevation because it's going to be colder up there. So colder generally produces better tea. And the last tea here is the Long Jing Supreme.
Okay.
Right? It's Shihu, Westlake, Plum Village, Chuntijong. So the classic. So it comes from Westlake, from Plum Village. It's from the Chuntijong variety, which is the classic heirloom variety. Picking on this is going to be late. I think it's right at the beginning of April. And the elevation is much lower in that area, 140 meters. So higher up, further north, colder, and lower elevation.
But you said the other one was down south. It was
higher elevation.
Higher elevation.
Because as you go south, it gets hotter, and therefore you need to go higher up to get cooler temperatures.
Okay, that makes sense.
So let's talk about the key differences here. Yeah. First of all, the key difference number one, and probably the one that's going to dictate the difference in price of these batches the most, is the origin. Okay, so you've got the very, very expensive Shihu Westlake Long Jing, right? Which we've visited, and we've got a video. If you'd like to see us visiting, you can take a look. I'll put a link in the description below. So Shihu Plum Village,
pricey teas,
super expensive. Sort of up there with Shifeng in terms of Lion's Head. You know, these really hallowed areas for Long Jing tea, the origin, the original origin. So. And then you've got Xinjiang, which is slightly further south, produces incredible teas at a much more affordable price.
Right.
And then you've got Suichang, which is even further south. So you've got sort of like north, middle, and south of Zhejiang. So that's the first key difference, is you've got different origins. And the second key difference, of course, is cultivar. So you've got the Chuntijong, which is the heirloom cultivar from Shihu.
Right.
You've got the Xiaoye Fuding, which is a relatively new cultivar. It's called the small leaf Fuding variety, which is in that middle zone in Xinjiang area of Zhejiang province. And then you've got Wunyuzhao. Wunyuzhao is a very early flushing cultivar. So that's why it was 7th of March. So much earlier flushing.
Right.
Yeah. And it comes from further south. Well, although Wunyuzhao has grown all over the place. And Wunyuzhao has become more and more popular for tea growers for two reasons. Earlier flushing means you can bring it to market quicker, which means you can steal that sort of that rush for the early spring teas, and also higher yield than Chuntijong. So
really?
you get more and it's produced earlier.
Sounds like a win-win.
Win-win, but let's see how
Yeah, the
that
taste.
translates into taste. So in essence, in this experience, you've got the absolute classic, the Shihu Chuntijong, what everyone would sort of class as the sort of archetypal, everything you'd be looking for as the sort of pinnacle Long Jing in terms of, on paper at least,
Right,
in terms
paper,
of cultivar and in terms of origin. And then you've got the sort of new breeds, you've got the very, very, very early flushing Wunyuzhao from further south. And then you've got the Xiaoye Fuding, which is another sort of relatively modern cultivar,
Yeah.
but from an area in between. Yeah?
Got it.
Right, so we're going to call this T1, we'll call this T1, T2, and T3. And that's how it will be listed on the packaging. So you'll see T1, T2, and T3. So we're doing it exactly the same here. Now, I should say, from this moment on, we're going to start talking tasting notes. And so what I would advise people who really want to do this experience like fully blind is for them to either pause here and, you know, do their own tasting,
Go and taste.
or you're welcome to watch, but I think it will influence things. So it's probably better for you to taste them for yourself first, and then you can sort of read the rest of the letter and watch the rest of this video. But of course, it's entirely up to you. I'm going to be brewing. So,
Because I'm too slow, which is true.
well, I know these tea signs. It's more about you just getting to experience them more. And we're not going to be, I'll tell you now, we're not going to be doing a full 10-step tasting here because it would take too long. And really, I don't really want to influence far too much the tasting notes.
Okay.
But I think it's more about comparisons. It's more about saying the differences between them rather than diving into the details.
Into the where it feels like it's picturing yourself.
Yeah, exactly. Instead of
More
doing
broad.
just a broader discussion of the differences. So let's talk about the
Sounds good.
differences
Okay.
in leaf.
In the leaf color and
Yeah.
looks.
So tell me what you're
Well,
noticing here.
instantly, like that is so much light green
Yeah.
compared to these two.
Yeah.
These two actually kind of similar, but I would say these are smaller leaves than that.
Right. So I agree with that. So smaller leaf, similar color,
Yeah.
similar tone to it, and then a much greener one here. Okay. Have a smell
Yeah.
of the dry leaf. Now, what we're looking for in Long Jing, well, there's a variety of characteristics that you could be looking for depending on your taste. But one of the things that is a very classic descriptor is this roasted bean flavor, which is very commonly ascribed to Shihu Chuntijong, so Westlake heirloom variety teas. So this sort of roasty, toasty bean note in the tea. So you might like that, but some people also like, I would say, a more modern sort of Long Jing approach is more floral, more bright, a little bit more of a meadowy kind of aromatic. So it's going to be a lot dependent on your taste. Go for it.
So yeah, this one has a more of a nutty note to it, which
Yeah.
I really like, and it's nicely mixed with a fresh spring taste. Like, yeah, I keep thinking maybe edamame, like steamed edamame, or maybe
Okay.
some green beans, but like fresh.
Yeah.
It smells lovely. Even a bit of a creamy kind of shortbread note to it.
Yep. Okay. Yep.
And then this one, it was more nutty.
So more
this
roasted,
one.
more nutty.
But not to the point where it's like just roast, you know?
Sure.
It just brings out the pastry note that I had from this one more in this one. So both on the roasted note, but this one a little bit more
Okay.
Warm.
Okay. And I think, you can, of course, be starting to make guesses about which one's which when you're doing your tasting. But really, I would advise at the beginning, just write notes, because if you're focused too much on trying to guess which one's which, it'll sort of distract your attention, I think.
That's really interesting. That's very different.
Yeah.
Like this one is way less on the roast.
Yeah.
More like blanched nuts and flower meadows.
Yeah.
Weirdly. I feel like that's going to taste quite light compared to these two.
Yeah. Okay, so I would agree. Generally, this is the lighter, less roasted. It still has nuttiness, but it would be much more in the sort of green edamame note. This one is sort of in between the two.
Yeah.
This one is the most roasted bean note and more pastries over here. Yeah. All right, so we're going to give these a rinse.
I love the roasted notes in Long Jing, so I'm already having like, maybe.
Yeah, so I've sort of changed over the years. I think that at the beginning, when we're first sourcing Long Jing, and I think this is just generally the case with my green tea sourcing, I was originally looking for more bright, fresh notes.
Yeah.
But as I've drunk more green teas and sourced more, I've definitely moved more towards I want some savory, I want umami, I want because I know that will translate to sweetness, long aftertaste of sweetness. And I'm less interested in too much of the floral in the meadows.
Yeah.
Some, obviously, you don't want it to, be completely overtaken the other way. Okay, here you go.
Thank you.
Let's go in the same order. And again, we're not going to be doing full tasting because I think that it will take too long, number one, and also, it'll impact your tasting notes as well. So this is really about your own experience.
This is so interesting. So interesting. Instant roast, like this is a nice balance compared to these two. But I love the hazelnut in this. I get like a full-on chocolate hazelnut smell, whereas that one is, it's like now the pastries come through and I get a little bit of like an almond, but not roasted.
Yeah, more raw.
More raw.
Yeah.
Very nice. I mean, they all smell amazing.
They all smell good. Okay, I should say that these batches were selected because I liked them all. They're not, all of these are good teas, great teas, in fact. So this isn't one of those tasting experiences where it's like, oh, that's a dud. But it's just about saying, like, if we take really great batches from different areas and different cultivars, what would you expect to experience and, for you to educate yourself in that? It's a really excellent way to sort of understand the curation process, how we choose our teas and, my personal taste versus maybe other people's tastes.
Yeah, it is very interesting.
So how would you define the difference between these two, though? Because this one clearly is different in terms of its more raw quality to it.
I would say this one has more of a milk chocolate note to it with, again, that cooked, maybe it's like a steamed artichoke vibe to it, whereas this one has more of the hazelnut that comes through.
So again, more nuts in this one.
Yeah.
I also pick up a little bit more of a brothy nature in this one, a little bit more like chicken broth or vegetable broth going on.
Some umami.
Yeah, in this one compared with that one. That one's more sweet, nutty. Yeah, I would say.
And the beans on it are like sweet beans,
Yeah.
It brings out,
or like
maybe it's the nuttiness that brings out that sweet bean.
Yeah, I find that both of these have bean. This one's a bit sweeter, like as if it's those adzuki beans, like sweetened red bean kind of quality. Yeah. Okay, so I recommend that you do this as a horizontal tasting. So do what we're doing. So you brewing all three at the same time. I mean, this is the perfect way to do it with the gong fu solo. If you don't have gong fu solo, you can. They're relatively affordable. Tiny guy one and a cup, so you could buy 3 gong fu solos and then you're away. But of course, you can figure it out. But it's nice if you sort of try to brew them in the same sort of vessels, the same capacity vessels, and do them together. So we're going to be counting 10 seconds difference between these.
I'm not counting, right?
No, I'll do it.
I was going to say as well, if you don't have a tray, just get a bowl and then you can put the rinse in the bowl.
Yeah.
and then practice not getting tea on the table.
Yeah, dry style.
Or dry style.
So we're going to brew them up maybe a little bit stronger than you would if you were going to just be doing a standard sort of gong fu session, because we're not going to go through lots of infusions here. I would recommend, if you've got the tasting experience, that you do sort of 2 infusions blind before you read the rest of the letter, because that way at least you're going to have very personal notes of your own.
Can I pour it? Are you
No,
really
I'm
going
good.
strong, are you?
Okay. I told you.
Can't help myself.
You're stressing.
Yeah, I'm stressing.
These are all great teas. They'll handle it.
I know. I love greens. Like, I love to get all the flavors, but I know what you're doing. I know that you're just trying to get.
Yeah, I
the
would
point.
recommend, if you're doing this, to brew it lighter, you know, and go through the steeps. But we're only going to be doing a couple of infusions here. So, okay.
Ooh, look at the leaves.
Yeah.
They're changing. Okay.
So
That's actually lighter than
yeah.
what it looked like before.
I know. Can you see that? Let's take a look. The
Shall I
difference
bring the other
between
one?
these two
I'll bring this.
and
Aha.
that one. There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is sort of middle, isn't it? This
Yeah.
is the darkest,
Yeah.
that's the more green, and this one is sort of in between.
Interesting.
Okay, that might tell you something. Okay,
Can I taste?
yeah, go for it.
Don't worry if there's leaves in there, I can eat them.
Yeah. 2023 spring teas are here. Long Jing is here. Imperial Green is here. And yeah, the experience of, sipping these teas recently has been such a joy for me. You making guesses about which one I've picked, haven't you? Okay.
Oh,
keep going.
I completely forgot about that.
Okay.
That's more roasty.
So the theme continues.
Yeah, I love the strength of that one. This one has more on the edamame note now.
Mm-hmm.
I get more chocolate and hazel. The chocolate and hazelnut's coming
there's
through.
chocolate in there for sure.
And this one. Oh my goodness. This is almost like in between Anji Bai Chai and the Long Jing.
Yeah. Much lighter, right? Much more
Much lighter.
green.
Yeah, but still very potent in the mouthfeel. Like,
Yeah.
it has it's more like a almonds that you've put in water and then you munch them.
Yeah, blanched
you know,
almonds.
blanched.
Yeah.
Whereas this one,
Try to focus also on, obviously you're going to be focusing on everything from aroma to mouthfeel, but try to focus on finish as well.
okay, they all have a very good, strong aftertaste.
Yeah.
It's just how the aftertaste changes in your mouth that's different.
Yeah.
So, in terms of the feel, I think this one felt thicker. These two were kind of similar in the thickness,
Okay.
but maybe that one a little bit more buttery compared to that one. The flavors are very different to each other.
Extremely,
like
yeah.
This is full on. It's like when you mix avocado with like
Yeah, it's got
melon,
creaminess. Yeah.
and you make a juice, and you add a bit of bitter gourd, like some kind of.
Yeah, there's a bitterness there.
But it's the fresh side of it. It's not
Yeah.
so bitter.
But it's a transformative
Yeah.
bitterness. It works very well.
Yeah.
It's like a bitter to sweet. It's quite an adult tasting
It's quite an
one.
adult taste,
Yeah.
yeah, but very deep and
Yeah.
lovely, like really
Yeah.
good. And this one, it keeps bringing me back to some pastries. Like
Yeah.
there is a green note about it, but it's so kind of thick and creamy that I almost overlook
Yeah.
the green note.
And it transforms to a really strong sweetness.
Yeah, And
very
it
strong
lingers
sweetness.
a long time. I do like that. But I do like roasted Long Jing in general.
Yeah.
And this one, much lighter. It still has a sweetness to it, like those biscuits that are sugared, but not too strong, not too sweet. I don't know what they're called.
What do they look like?
They're long. You put them in tiramisu.
Oh, the lady's fingers.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, sort of sugared and lighter, but lighter. Yeah.
But the finish, it's less thick, but it's still lingering. They're both amazing. They're all amazing.
But that one has a shorter finish. Just in general, right?
Yeah, than these two.
Okay.
In my opinion.
Well, I think I think most people would have a similar opinion about that. Okay, so try them one more time, see if you can tease out any other differences, and then we're going to talk about what the differences are.
Okay.
I guess you can guess which one's the Wu Niu Zhao.
Yes, the lighter tasting ones. This one.
Yeah. So this one is the Wu Niu Zhao.
And the small leaf must be that one.
Well, taste again. So this is so tea number 3 is the Wu Niu Zhao, and you could tell that pretty much from the dry leaf. It's a lot greener. It also feels, when you feel it in the hands, it will feel more papery, a little bit thinner. Always the thing that I noticed with Wu Niu Zhao, if you take like 3 grams of another variety in Wu Niu Zhao, it always looks more with the Wu Niu Zhao because it just is generally less dense. It's earlier flushing, higher yield. And whilst I think it is a lovely cultivar, it's nice, it's bright, it's raw, it's green, and in some ways it might be what a lot of people are looking for in Long Jing tea. And so I can understand it sort of becoming a fashionable thing. I personally don't associate that taste with a really high quality Long Jing. I associate the Wu Niu Zhao taste as a sort of a semi-finished tea. It doesn't taste like it's really been brought to that level. And I don't think you can with this cultivar. That's what you get out of that cultivar. It's creamy, it's got a bit of nuts, it's got a bit of a bean note, but it's more of a green bean note, and it's definitely got a shorter finish. So deciding now between these two. So one of these is a Shihu Chuntijong, so very, very, very expensive Long Jing Supreme. I'm not sure if we're going to sell it as Long Jing Supreme. I'll see how these kits go, and if there's some left over, then we'll sell it as Long Jing Supreme. But at the moment, you can only get it through the kit. And then the other one is our Imperial Green 2023, which is a TEAWARE Fuding from Xinjiang. So, want to hazard a guess?
I'm like looking at the leaves going, which one is smaller leaf? Kind of hard to tell.
Well, yeah, I wouldn't follow that as the name.
I was going to say this might be the Long Jing Supreme. It's just so creamy and lush, but I don't know how I would decipher.
Yeah, but the point here is that they're both excellent teas that have a good, strong roasted bean flavor, but they're different. And so I'll put you out of your misery. This is the Chuntijong, Shihu Chuntijong.
Okay.
So that's Westlake, and this is the TEAWARE Fuding. And so the interesting thing I think here is that this has the most roasted bean flavor.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
This has the most, what I would associate with that sort of deep, rich, sweet quality that I look for in a Long Jing, more than the heirloom variety picked from Plum Village.
Yeah, interesting.
Which I think is really interesting. And one of the reasons why I tend to select TEAWARE Fuding for a Long Jing, if you look back the last couple of years, there's been a fair amount of TEAWARE Fuding in there as the batches that we've picked, because I think it has a really, really rich, sweet flavor. And I think that if I was going to describe the differences between them, this is deeper, richer, sweeter, which all sounds good. But this one, the Supreme, has a level of elegance to it and clarity to it that this one doesn't. So the clarity, what I mean by clarity, I mean, it's like there's more space.
Yeah.
There's more space that you can pick out stuff that you're tasting. Whereas this is like this beautiful melange, this beautiful sort of intermingled mix of like richness and flavor, which I absolutely adore. But if you were sort of gonna pinpoint what is that Shihu Westlake characteristic
Yeah.
and something that is prized in those characteristics. One of them is that clarity.
Right.
And so you've got maybe less richness, but more like, you know, you can sort of more space to find those flavors. And the second thing is it has a more transformation. It comes in stages. So I get much more bitterness with this one than this one.
Yeah, 100%.
And that bitterness is transforming. So you get more of a shift, more of a journey potentially than this one. Although this one moves from more like that sort of savory, umami, beany to like a beautiful sweetness. So there's still movement. This has more of a sort of journey on the mouth.
Right. When you say clarity, do you mean like a bright, like flowery note?
No, I mean clarity like as if like this one has more going on. And so therefore it's like a stew. It's sort of like they're all
dense.
mixed together in this beautiful mix of flavor, of richness. This one here is more like a Michelin star dish where each little ingredient, so I taste the bean, I taste the, you know, the little bitter gourd, I taste the melon. It's sort of like more pinpointed. They're sort of separated.
Right.
And so that clarity is something that I think some people really seek out when they're picking their green teas. You can also see that the leaf picking, I mean, the Shihu one, it is really, really, look at that leaf picking. It's just, it has a certain look about it that you're going to pay for, right? But if you ask me which is my favorite tea, which one I would be drinking more often, it would probably be the middle tea, because I really love that rich, nutty to sweet flavor.
It's interesting though, because I do find like this one is nice in between the two.
Yeah.
So
I mean, so this, if, you know, buying for Mayleaf, this is my classic Imperial Green. It's rich, it's deep, it's got lots going on, and it's going to go through lots of infusions.
Right.
This one here is what I would call a very elegant Long Jing Supreme.
Right.
And as I said, we might sell it as Long Jing Supreme depending on how many kits we sell. So you might be able to buy it separately, but at the moment that's only going to be part of the kit. But I love it as well.
Yeah.
If I wanted a more like sharp, elegant, you know, tea that had that more bitter to sweet pulling sensation, then Long Jing Supreme. So they're both excellent teas, and this is actually a really good tea as well.
It's a really good tea. It's just quite kind of almost too different to me, because I'm so used to liking the roasted note, whereas this one really doesn't have much of that.
And I think this one represents a trend.
Yeah,
right?
I think some people really love.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people, when they first get into Long Jing, may actually prefer that because they want that, it's a lighter, more sort of raw almond note to it. It's a bit more of a sort of, I don't know, you can easily equate it to a fresh green tea much more than the others.
But then I would go for like Angie Bai Cha.
True. But anyway, they're all great teas, and they're
really
all, you know, I hope that if you get this experience, you can enjoy all of the teas. So after you've done this, you could enjoy them separately. You could do this horizontal tasting again or with friends. I think the takeaways here are there are key differences that origin, cultivar, and to some degree elevation makes on the tea, but it's not always as clear cut as you may think, because I think a lot of people would think that this was the Shihu just in terms of the taste because of that rich flavor. But actually Shihu is more about a certain sort of clarity and elegance rather than just depth and richness. And I think that is something that I wanted to try to portray in this experience, because oftentimes when we're tasting very, very expensive Long Jing teas from Shihu, my criticism of it is it's a bit light. You know, it's a bit like, I want more richness. And so I wanted to find a really good one to express that. It's light, but it's intentional. That's the sort of style of that type of tea.
Yeah.
Anyway, let me know your thoughts. There are plenty of other differences that you can pick out, and you can write much more extensive tasting notes than we've gone through today. But I hope that this tasting experience gives you an idea of the curation process and gives you a better education in the nuances that come in different batches of the same type of tea. That's it, tea heads. Check out other videos, taste our teas wherever you are in the world by browsing mayleaf.com, and come visit us if you're ever in London. Other than that, this is Celine and I'm Don from Mayleaf. Thank you for being a part of the revelation of true tea. Stay away from those tea bags, keep drinking the good stuff, and spread the word, because nobody deserves bad tea. Bye.